So there really was an orchestrated cover-up on this. We also now know that he was visiting the CIA in early 2020. We know that the CIA scientists, 7 of them, voted 6-1 to say it came from the lab, and then they were reversed by superiors. We need to know whether Anthony Fauci influenced the superiors, or perhaps the opposite. Did the CIA influence Anthony Fauci? But we also need to know how often he was visiting and what he was there for. Our understanding is that he wasn't recorded on visitor logs, but he was appearing frequently at the CIA. You have to realize that he was not a scientist in charge of a cure for cancer. He was also in charge of a lot of bioweapons money and in charge of a lot of things that had dual use. And they won't reveal any of this to us. They had weekly meetings on dangerous dual-use research concerns and gain of function, and not one item of any of those meetings has been released to us, despite us asking for it for over 3 years.
And that's Kentucky Senator Rand Paul with me here back in December of 2023. As the senator investigated whether actions by Anthony Fauci, then the head of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases, was behind the source of the lab leak in Wuhan, China, that led to the COVID pandemic, which of course killed millions across the world. And then whether he proceeded to lie about it to Congress and to the American people. Never before seen documents newly released by former Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard expose Fauci working to suppress the truth about all of his actions, about the virus's lab leak origins, and his role in directing U.S. funding for this dangerous research that caused countless lost lives. Joe Biden's intelligence community flagged that interview, my interview with Senator Rand Paul, during its investigation. And yet Fauci was pardoned by Joe Biden, or by his auto pen, back in January of 2025, literally a half an hour before President Trump took the oath of office for the start of his second term. Joining me now is the former head of the COVID subcommittee, former Ohio Congressman Brad Wenstrup. Brad, it's great to have you this morning. Thank you so much for being here, and you've done so much work on this story, leading that subcommittee. What is your reaction to Tulsi Gabbard's drop of all of this data? You also interviewed Fauci when you questioned him when he was under oath. What can you tell us in terms of your own observations?
Well, first of all, thanks for having me on today to talk about this, but I also want to thank Director Gabbard for doing what she did, the investigation that she performed, because otherwise so much would continue to be buried. You know, we did a lot on the select subcommittee on the coronavirus pandemic, but that was unclassified. We had even more information in the intelligence committee that unfortunately was buried after Adam Schiff became the chair. So I'm very grateful to what Director Gabbard has done. I'm grateful to what Senator Paul has been doing. But let's look at the motive for trying to cover this up, because we basically went from trying to save lives to origins of COVID, to origins of the cover-up, not only within China, but within our own government. Dr. Fauci was for gain-of-function research as far back as 2012, and he said that the benefits outweigh the risk of it creating a pandemic if it got out of the lab. Along comes EcoHealth Alliance, and they want to do the very research that could create a virus like COVID-19. They go over to the Department of Defense, and they're turned down. But they go over to Dr. Fauci at NIH, and he signs for this grant. In his transcribed interview, he said he doesn't know what's in the grants. He just signs them. Somebody else reviews them. This is unheard of, and certainly not what the taxpayers have in mind. When we asked him about them not complying with the grant, not doing their reporting, not reporting that they created a pathogen, and he said, that's over in compliance, I have nothing to do with it. But he did say he gets billions of dollars for grants, and he can't know what's in all of them. That is a problem for the United States of America. And when we got the report from the IC about the 90-day commission that President Biden put out on what each community felt the origins were, it was extremely weak. And when I asked who they talked to, I was told it's our policy not to tell you. They don't get to have that policy. It's in statute that they need to fully and currently inform the Intelligence Committee. Dr. Fauci put together a team that were driven by him to say that this came from nature and put out a report, which he announced on the White House lawn, I think without consulting President Trump or Vice President Pence. And these very same people who wrote this article saying it came from nature, in their own emails, were saying this thing looks engineered. The documents from Tulsi Gabbard exposed Dr. Fauci influencing and manipulating the intelligence community assessment, driving it towards came from nature, and under oath, he denied having anything to do with talking to CIA, especially about viral research. Yeah. So there's a lot out there now. There's a lot more to come. And it didn't surprise me right before Director Burns left the CIA to turn it over to John Ratcliffe that he said, oh, we have new evidence that it came from the lab. Because he knew what Tulsi Gabbard knew.
Well, it's interesting. The CIA element here is real important because Fauci kept saying that he wasn't talking with the CIA. But in terms of the intelligence community's investigation and their assessment, and when they flagged my interview with Rand Paul, they were very interested in how many times he went back and forth to the CIA. What was he doing at the CIA? Convincing Burns to go along with this whole idea that it was from nature?
Yeah, and what was the motive for that? You know, there's certain people that directly or indirectly have blood on their hands in the millions of people that died around the world because they wanted to go ahead with this type of research. And the scientists that the intelligence community talked to, many of them we now know, had severe conflicts of interest. And the FBI, though, however, really went with the experts, virologists, and we had a CDC director who was a virologist, Robert Redfield, and he was shoved out by Dr. Fauci through all of this. Yeah, you can't make this up, but in one of the agencies, a whistleblower told us that they were told not to talk to the FBI anymore because the FBI's gone off the reservation. What does that mean? They're going with lab leak, and we're not.
Yeah, that's right. And so I guess at the end of the day, we want to know Fauci's culpability. Number one, did Fauci lie to you under oath?
Well, that's what we're going to explore, because if you look at it, it certainly would appear that way, and that's what the Gabbard report says as well. He really played down or tried not to recall ever talking to them. Well, I don't know how you can forget that when it's something that you may have done over and over again.
Did Fauci receive money from pharmaceutical companies for vaccines? Was he receiving money? Was this about money?
Well, that's the other thing that we need to do is totally follow the money. Look, we know one of the motives for gain-of-function research was to predict a pathogen that could create a pandemic and then already have the vaccine in place, which would lead to billions of dollars in sales of vaccines. But when asked if this could get out of the lab and create a pandemic, he said the benefits outweigh the risk. I don't know who's benefited. Maybe just him.
Wow. And in terms of Fauci's pardon, do we know if that is legitimate? Did Joe Biden actually pardon Fauci, or was that the auto pen? Because I remember very clearly at the inauguration looking at my phone and saying, wow, they just pardoned Fauci now? The President Trump is about to take the oath of office in 20 minutes now? I think it happened in 2012. My reaction to that was, how low can you absolutely go? And thank you for providing the list of people that we seriously need to look into. Because if they're innocent and haven't done anything, why would you be pardoning them? You know that there was a lot of mischief going on. But that doesn't mean that it can't be further investigated. That doesn't mean that Dr. Fauci can't be brought in under oath once again and be able to answer some of these questions. My guess is he would plead the fifth. If Fauci did not lie, if in fact that is what, if he did not mislead Congress, would lives have been saved?
You know, I got to think if people were honest from the beginning of what was going on, that to say that this could have come from the lab, and not only that. Here's another problem with the whole construct. Why was Dr. Fauci in charge? America should have been hearing from the doctors that were treating COVID patients, telling us what worked and what didn't work, who was dying and why they were dying. We could have saved a lot of lives if that was the process, but no, It was all Dr. Fauci, and he was telling doctors things they couldn't use to treat patients, and he never stood over one patient and tried to take care of them.
And he was also in charge of a lot of bioweapon funding. Funding of bioweapons, incredible. Congressman, we're going to continue following your work. I know that you've done so much already, but we will keep on the story, sir. Thank you.
Yeah, we're not finished, Maria. Thank you.
Thank you, former Congressman Brad Wenstrup. A quick break and then the Strait of Hormuz with